Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Goffstown Today, a local public affairs program that's being brought to you by the Goffstown Democratic Committee. Our goal in these sessions is to provide meaningful discussions of local and state issues important to the greater Goffstown community and the state of New Hampshire. Our special guest today, who is going to be talking about the very important topic of New Hampshire's energy future, is Bob Backus of Manchester, an attorney, a longtime state representative for Manchester's Ward 12, a former chairman of the House Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, and an expert on New Hampshire's energy policies. There's a plan that Governor Chris Sununu included in the budget proposal now being considered by the New Hampshire Senate that would be, among other things, wrap the now standalone Public Utilities Commission into a new Department of Energy. Democrats have supported the establishment of such a department in the past, but Sununu has been heavily criticized for not going through the House committee process to implement his plan. And I asked Mr. Backus if he would start by bringing us up to date on what's going on with this issue in Concord and what it looks like for this proposal to make it through the Senate. Mr. Backus, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Len, for inviting me back on your TV show. I certainly enjoy being part of this. Yes, we have no agency in our government at all that even has energy in its title anymore. The governor used to have an Office of Energy and Planning, but that's morphed into something called the Office of Strategic Initiatives. And here we are. Energy is vitally important to the future of our state as it is to our country and internationally as well. And 43 other states have something like a Department of Energy. That is to say, a state agency which advocates for the state's energy policies as set by the legislature. We do not. And I think that's a serious omission. So I was both surprised and pleased when the governor in his budget address completely floored me by saying he was going to call for the establishment of a Department of Energy. Now, as you mentioned, Len, it turned out that he did this by folding it into the House budget process, not the normal committee process. So it's part of the House Bill 2, which is called a trailer bill. House Bill 1 is all about the numbers in the budget that's being established for the biennium, which will go into effect on June 30th this year for the next 2 years. And House Bill 2 says how those dollars will be used. And it was in that bill that the governor said he wanted to establish a Department of Energy. And so this is something I've long advocated. Indeed, in the last legislature, I chaired a commission, a study commission on the Department of Energy, and was not expecting to see it get this push by the governor. So Democrats, and I'm one, of course, have a lot of problems with Governor Sununu, but on this case, I think he's doing the right thing. Now, this bill has passed the House, but with a lot of amendments that a lot of people are very upset about, including some by the governor himself. So it goes over to the Senate, where, you know, our senator representing Goffstown and much of Manchester, Senator Lou D'Alessandro, is on the Finance Committee. And unfortunately, like me, he's no longer the chair because our party's in the minority in both houses. But he will have a lot to say about how this bill emerges from the Senate Finance Committee. They get the kind of the last crack at it. I think it's inevitable this bill is going to go to a conference committee. And what the fate of this proposal will be there, I mean, who knows? I mean, who knows when we get traded off for that. Now, Len, you're right. You mentioned a lot of the Democrats, and my good friends and colleagues are quite upset about this process. They say, well, why didn't this go through the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee in the House and the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate? And I understand that. And ideally, I suppose that wouldn't be so. But I think the need for this is quite urgent. And so I'm actually pleased it's going to go forward as part of the budget process. You know, the COVID has affected operations up in Concord in many, many ways. You know, we're still having everybody's meeting remotely. A lot of bills that were filed are not getting heard, not getting acted on. So a whole bunch of stuff is being pushed off for the second year of the term, the second session we call it, which will be starting up in January. This term will wind down by the end of June with the passage of the budget, one way or another. So I think if we wanted to get this thing going, this was really a necessary way to do it. Procedurally, in an ideal procedural world, we wouldn't have done it this way. I got to agree with my fellow Democrats that are opposed to it on that ground. I agree with that, but I sometimes think that you can't let the enemy be the perfect become the enemy of the good, and so I think this is really important. Now, why do we need a Department of Energy? Well, there is no agency in government, not only never that doesn't have that in its name, but there's really tasked with pushing the energy goals we set for the state. And we set some. State law does call for us to advance renewable energy, energy efficiency, which together form what we like to call clean energy. We want clean energy in New Hampshire, not just because it's clean and doesn't emit carbon, which is a threat, but because it can generate a lot of good jobs. Just look at all the jobs provided by people installing, solar rooftop and so forth. And at the moment, New Hampshire is falling disastrously behind in moving to clean energy. Not too long ago, Len, I remember, walking along the Goffstown Rail Trail, which I like to do very much, and seeing signs up say, Solar City is here. Solar City has come to Goffstown. And there was another major national corporation called Sunrun. They've gone. They've left. We're not pushing this renewable energy in a way to make them stay here. We still have a wonderful company, which is mainly based in Maine, called Revision Energy. I'm sure many of your folks there know Dan Weeks is a wonderful person and a great contributor, and he works as a principal person for Revision Energy. And they're just having an awful hard time getting things going in New Hampshire. With an agency that could advocate for this, we may be able to get back our lead. Not our lead, but at least get back in the, where we're not falling so far behind. In energy efficiency, which is the cheapest way to meet our energy needs. Energy efficiency, Len, just means we're going to get the same energy value, the same energy services, but using fewer kilowatts. Instead of building a new power plant or, some new source of energy, you just use the energy more efficiently that you have. That's our cheapest form of energy, and it's the most environmentally benign. It has a great payback period, about 4 to 1 in very short years. You're going to make money back on that. And now, because New Hampshire is so fallen behind in its energy support for energy efficiency, we have projects that can't be funded that would help save energy for our citizens. So these are some of the things I think we need to be concerned about, and I hope this Department of Energy will help out. Now, Len, you're probably going to say, yeah, but we have a Republican governor. He's going to appoint the commissioner to this agency. Can we be confident that person will be advocating for renewable energy and clean energy and energy efficiency? Well, not necessarily, but our goals are in the statute. Our goals are there. They are not robust. They need to be upgraded. We're lagging way behind, but they are there. You can't ignore what the legislature has said, that it does favor the establishment of moving forward with more, renewable energy and clean energy. Besides that, on the PUC, the governor appoints the PUC commissioners. He has just recently nominated a new commissioner because there's been a long time vacancy. A fellow who ran for Ward 1 representative in Manchester, Goldner, who nobody knows a whole lot about because he doesn't have any public record. But he did at one time own some land in Iowa, and he had some windmills on it, which I took as kind of a helpful sign because windmills are a non-emitting source of energy, of course, and an increasingly important one. So, either way, the governor is going to have a big say in how we move forward. But again, I say he still has to help us achieve the energy goals that the legislature has declared. And I hope we'll get back to those goals and make them more robust and more aggressive. So we have a target that we should really, say a man's reach should exceed his grasp. We want our reach to exceed our grasp to get to the goal of having a more benign, efficient, and less polluting energy system. So that's the quick take on where we are with the Department of Energy. Stay tuned. It's going to come down to a big crisis in a committee of conference in the next month and a half.
Are you optimistic that maybe by, I believe the budget has to be passed and in place by July 1st? Are you at all optimistic it's going to get done by the time they have to have a budget passed?
I think there's a good chance for it, but it's certainly not a slam dunk, Len. It's no slam dunk. Those conference of committees, who knows what'll be traded off. As you know, even some Republicans are very upset about some of the things, put things in the governor's budget that even he doesn't like, limiting his authority to declare emergency powers as he's done with regard to the pandemic. The governor's very upset about that. He won't want to see that passed. I think it's going to take some work by our House Democrats to make this happen. And so far, they're hardly enthusiastic about this proposal. And so I'm trying to convince them. I'm trying to talk to our House Democrats and my former friends on the Science, Technology, Energy Committee and saying, yeah, let's get over your unhappiness with this process and let's see if we can move this forward. Now, one of the arguments, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just starting. There was an article, I believe it was in the New Hampshire Journal, that observed that some of this back and forth had resulted in there were recent energy efficiency goals that were supposed to be implemented, and the PUC is just sitting on them at this point.
Yeah, that's very distressing when people say, "Oh, we shouldn't take the PUC." There will still be a PUC. It'll be a much smaller, if this passes, there'll still be a PUC. They'll still have their 3 commissioners, and they will basically do nothing but decide rate cases when people like Eversource, which serves Goffstown and Manchester, of course, come in, they want a rate case because they say they need rates to support their work, which is no longer generating electricity. Their work now is delivering it on the transmission and distribution lines to you and me and our businesses and fellow citizens. When they come into that, they'll still have that rate hearing, but they will no longer have much of the other authority. And I have to say, Len, that the PUC has never been comfortable in implementing our energy efficiency and renewable energy goals. They don't feel comfortable doing it. They don't think that's their thing. They're experts in setting rates under the law, from longstanding rates from a regulated monopoly, which these utilities are. They are monopolies by inevitably, have to be, quote, just and reasonable, unquote. So that's what they're experts at. And they decide how many costs the utilities can recover as prudently incurred. And then on top of that, what rate of return they should be allowed to make. So that's what they do. And they'll still be allowed to do that. But the rest of it will go over to the Department of Energy, with one big exception. And really, this is surprising to me. No part of the Department of Environmental Services under this bill will be transferred to the proposed Department of Energy, which is surprising because the Air Resources Division sets the goals for our regional greenhouse gas program, which is one of our major programs to combat carbon pollution through a market mechanism, a market-based pricing mechanism. And also for those that don't make their targets, they have to pay something called an alternative compliance payment, which helps fund energy efficiency and renewable energy. So it's surprising to me that got left out, and I hope in another day, if this gets passed, they will be included in this Department of Energy.
Well, might that be perhaps that there's not a lot of belief on the Republican side of the aisle in the regional greenhouse gas initiative? It seems to me that could be an issue that's coming from a partisan direction.
Yeah. Well, every year in the legislature since I've been there, and I'm sure it's going to continue, we have a tax on RGGI, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. New Hampshire is one of, I think, 10 states, maybe another 1 or 2 have joined. It's been there since this whole thing was set up as a cap and trade program, a market-based program to address climate change, as opposed to putting, say, a fee on carbon, which the Republicans would inevitably call a tax, and therefore they have to oppose. And even now, New Hampshire has a law in place that says we will exit RGGI if one or more other states with a certain percentage of the New England load exit RGGI. So we are already on the edge of a repeal, but no other state is intending to leave. I mean, every other state thinks this is working fine and benefiting people. But that's the problem. Our Republican friends seem to think that this is a bad thing. Here's the thing, Lynn. Here's the thing. We all want to reduce our energy costs. We want other things too. We want our energy to be clean. We want it to be non-emitting. We want it to support job growth. But we'd all like to have energy costs go down. And you've probably heard, and people listening to this probably heard, that New Hampshire has extraordinarily high cost for energy, particularly for electricity, which is basically not true. We are high compared to the region. We are to the nation. We are not high compared to the region. Connecticut has higher electric rates than we do. Massachusetts does. We are sort of in the middle of New England, but this myth is out there, avidly promoted by the Business and Industry Association, which have a couple big, members that don't like paying their electric bills. They think they're too high. But the fact is, if we want to lower costs, the only way we can really do it is not by nibbling about the little part of the bill. It's called a systems benefits charge, which, for 90 cents a month or something, the most residential customers pay into to help support low-income customers with affording electricity and help, fund our energy efficiency programs. They want to cut that out. But the real way you lower costs is by reducing your demand. So, as I like to say, we should never talk about ratepayers. You're an electric ratepayer, I'm an electric ratepayer. But nobody pays rates. We pay bills, don't we? It's not the rate you pay, it's the bottom line in your bill. You owe Eversource this month, blah, 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 blah. There it is in the bottom of the bill. That's what you want. If you reduce your use, you're going to have to buy fewer kilowatts. And even if each kilowatt costs a tiny bit more to fund our energy efficiency, pretty soon the bill's going to be lower, and it's going to stay lower year after year after year. Because once you do these energy efficiency projects, whether it's relamping, getting better appliances, or on the heat side, putting in good insulation, those savings go on year after year after year. They don't go away. So that's the way to lower costs. And I don't understand why my Republican colleagues just don't get that. We can't have any additional bit of charge on the electric bill that isn't directly related to the delivery of electricity from some generating source to your house. We can't have that because it's a tax, and the taxes are inherently bad in the Republican world. Guns good, taxes bad. That's their mantra. But in any event, they should stop being so penny wise and get to be penny wise and pound foolish. They're penny wise, but they're pound foolish, because the savings come when we reduce the need for electricity without compromising our need or our ability to serve our needs for air conditioning and whatever else we use electricity for. All the things that make it so essential for modern life. It's out there. So let's not talk about ratepayers. Let's talk about bill payers. Let's consider ourselves bill payers and ask our elected legislators, hey, I want to lower my bill. Forget about my rate. I want to lower my bill. Would you permit us to fund some energy efficiency so we can do that? Now, Len, you mentioned something that's really, really aggravating to me. The number one vehicle we've had in New Hampshire, and I was instrumental in bringing this forward, is something called the Energy Efficiency Resource Standard, or ERS. And that is a program that's been administered by the PUC, under which we set goals for energy efficiency in this state. And many, many states around the country have similar programs, have been spectacularly successful, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, where costs have gone way down, demand has gone way down, and you set goals for energy efficiency. This program operates in 3-year increments. The third year of the first plan is just about done. The second 3-year plan was to go before the PUC for approval with modest increases. Yeah, a little bit of a tick up on some rates, but the savings will come. And that plan went to the PUC after a big stakeholder, gathering to have a settlement conference. It was a contested docket, a litigated matter to the PUC, but the parties, as they often do, came together. And these parties included low-income advocates, they included environmental advocates, and they included the 4 utilities that serve New Hampshire: Eversource, the Co-op, Liberty, and Unitil. And they all agreed on this adjustment to the plan to up our goals a little bit, add a small amount of funding on the systems benefits charge, and they sent it to the PUC, where it was supposed to have been approved by the first of the year, and the PUC has never approved it. That's very unusual, very unusual. Of course, the PUC at this time is only 2. So it may be that the chairman and the other one commissioner, whose term is coming up pretty soon too, did not agree on this, and they're hamstrung. There's now a 3rd commissioner been nominated, and I guess I don't know if he's been approved, but he certainly will be, because they have strong control over the executive council, and he will be approved. Maybe that will do it, but it's really distressing that we are not moving forward with this. I mean, just terrible. So there you go. That's some of what I'm on.
Well, it seems like all of these things, the way you put it, with the fact that, it's not just a rate setting, but it's actually cutting the electrical consumer's bill that really makes a difference. It's funny because someone like me who was, and I'm sure you remember it very well, the disaster of the PSNH bankruptcy.
Oh, yes.
The state went through after that. I think that there are people sometimes who feel like, we're still paying for the legacy of public service at this.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of that thing came something that they chose to call stranded costs. It was mainly over the Seabrook nuclear plant, which I was involved with for decades as an opponent of it. First of all, Len, think about this. Public service was the first significant utility of any kind to go bankrupt ever, with maybe one exception during the Great Depression in the 30s, but nothing as big as this. It was the biggest utility bankruptcy in history. And think about it. Public service is a legal monopoly. Nobody can compete with them. They're selling you and I and everybody in their service territory, which is 70% of New Hampshire, an essential product that we can't do without. You have a legal monopoly. You're being compensated on cost plus. All you have to do is convince the PUC your costs are justified, and you get an authorized rate of return. And they went bankrupt? I mean, how do you do that? How do you go bankrupt when you have a legal monopoly and you're selling an essential product to a captive customer base? Well, you had to work at it, and they worked at it, and they ended up bankrupt. And as a result of that bankrupt, there were all these Seabrook costs, billions of dollars, Seabrook costs that had nowhere to go. And some of them got sloughed off in bankruptcy, which is what bankruptcy is for. It's to cut out costs. But they made a deal, and the legislature approved it as part of the getting out of the bankruptcy, emerging from the bankruptcy. The state agreed to give public service 7 years of consecutive 5.5% rate increases across the board. It was very controversial and hard to do because, as you know, Lynn, no one legislature can bind the next legislature. Anything one legislature does can be undone by the next legislature. So they really had to work to get this 7-year deal approved as a legal binding thing, but they did. Well, you know what, Len, if you know the miracle of compound interest, we all like it when we get some interest on our money, which none of us really are anymore. But if you go and look at the compounding, this added up to over a 45% rate increase over 7 years that we agreed to give them. And at that point, we did have the highest electric rates in the nation. And they chose to call these things stranded costs. I always love that. When you think of stranded, somebody out in a lifeboat that's in trouble, you got to go rescue them. Yeah, that's what this was like. This wasn't somebody in danger on the sea in a lifeboat. This was costs that they couldn't recover otherwise without mandating that the customers pay it. And so even after the bankruptcy, we had that long history of the stranded costs. We've worked it off. The stranded costs are pretty well gone. There were other stranded costs, particularly for the wood burning plants that were, given above market rates as an incentive to develop that form of renewable energy. But those are all pretty well by us now, with the exception of the loss on the sale of the Merrimack plant in Bow and the scrubber project up there, as you may recall. Yeah, so that's definitely part of the history. But the bankruptcy of public service was quite an event. Yeah, it's very unique.
So with all these stranded costs out of the picture, though, there is the opportunity to make some of these moves that are going to, hopefully reduce the consumer's bill in the long run.
And again, I just can't emphasize enough, and I know you just did too. The thing to keep your eye on the bill, not on the rate. Keep your eye on the bottom line. People like to say, hey, I'm not an accountant, but I am a bottom line guy. Yeah, we should all be bottom line guys and gals. Look at that bill. That's where we want to work. That's where we can make the savings. Now, the other thing is, just personally, it really gripes me, having been a New Hampshire guy all my life, pretty much, with a few years here and there elsewhere, that New Hampshire has fallen so far behind in our renewable energy efforts and our energy efficiency efforts. For a while, we were kind of back there with Maine, but Maine elected a great Democratic governor, Janet Mills, and they're going gangbusters. Now, all the people that, were going to do solar here, so many of them are doing projects in Maine now. And if you go to Vermont, just drive around Vermont or drive around Massachusetts and look around, see how much more solar they got. There's solar panels everywhere, everywhere. And in New Hampshire, we have some, there's a lot of houses that do have solar, but nothing like it should have been and could have been, and now should be going forward.
And that's due to kind of a lack of incentive and policy moves and policy questions on our part, right?
Yeah. Again, I say penny wise and pound foolish. The Republicans say, look, we want to save you that, 20 cents on your bill or 90 cents on your monthly bill or $1.25, whatever it is. I like to say it's a cup of coffee. And so we're going to help you with that. Well, nobody notices that. And that money you save doesn't allow you as a homeowner or me as a homeowner to fund our own energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is our cheapest option, but it isn't free. You got to front the money for a project, and the state should help with that. The state should help with that because the payback is enormous. So that's what I'm hoping we'll see. And in spite of all the political machinations around the Department of Energy, I think the Department of Energy can help us get there. Plus, Len, we're not going to have Republican governors all the time. I hope very soon we're going to have another Democratic governor who will be like Janet Mills and say, I want New Hampshire back in this energy efficiency game. I want to help our citizens, help our climate fight, help our environment. And we're going to get these, we want these renewable energy companies to come back. So.
All right, well, I thank you very much, Bob. We're down to about a minute left. I don't know if you have any closing statement, although that was a pretty strong closing statement.
I just would say one thing, Len, and I really appreciate your inviting me on your show, and God love the Goffstown Democrats. The one thing that I haven't mentioned at all, we could do another show on, but maybe I wouldn't be the best guest. The big thing now in renewable energy is the offshore wind development in the Gulf of Maine and in off the Nantucket Sound again. That is just a huge potential for massive amounts of non-emitting fuel-free power, wind power. And you got to watch that. That's going to be that looks like it's going to be the next big thing. So that's another thing.
Well, we intend to keep the show going for as long as we can, so you very well may be back. Thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it much. We're trying to keep the people of our town informed, and you've been incredibly informative today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Take care.
So thank you. And just to let everyone know that these programs are carried here on Goffstown Television. You can also find them on YouTube by searching for the Goffstown Democrats YouTube channel. And they're carried on our Facebook page, as well as our webpage, which is goffstowndems.com. Please like them, please share them widely, and please come back for our next program. Thank you all.